My name's GuykesTV and I've been a professional bike tester for the past 21 years. And today I'm in the glorious Peak District in Derbyshire because the bike I'm testing is a local legend. The new Generation 3 Cotic Rocket, 157mm, 27.5 steel framed enduro bike. This is the third generation Cotic Rocket, and that means a few significant things. The first is this crazy long shot geometry. So you've got 64 or 64.5 degree head angle, depending whether you're on a 160 or a 170mm fork, plus 481mm reach on this large, and it just puts the front wheel so far out in front. You can normally see the fork brace on a really slack bike. On this, you can see the fork brace, the tyre, and the fork crown in front of the bar. So much time to deal with things. Just so stable. I mean, Si's never been afraid to stick his neck out with bikes and bike design, even despite the fact he's a small company, but he's literally stuck his neck out with this one. But it really does work. And of course, you don't have to have a crazy long bike. You could just run a medium frame with a shorter reach and a longer seat post, but you know, Si's committed to this long shot all across his trail bikes, both the drop link suspension bikes and his hardtails. And if you fancy trying something radical for that real high speed control, even when it's sketchy loose like this, it does make an amazing difference to how confident it feels. You can just do a whole load of the front wheel and it just doesn't upset or tuck the bike, just lets you get away with all sorts of murder. I mean, I'm filming in the Peak District today, not far from where Si's based, but I've also ridden Helvellyn on this bike. Unfortunately, the footage came out lousy because my gimbal had died, so I can't use that. But been riding this Helvellyn, been riding out local trails, just absolutely awesome. The faster you go, the more that geometry makes sense. I mean, inevitably, on tighter sections, especially when you're climbing, you have to go the long way around stuff. Now, 1250mm wheelbase is going to take a bit of long wheelbase transit moments. You'll often find the front end is right up the bank on hairpins, but there's always a trade-off. Oh, it's just a bike. I mean, I've not ridden these trails around here for years, so but this is a bike that just makes you want to crack on and play with stuff. I mean, and this is the more playful version, 27.5. I mean, it'll take 2.6 inch tyres, so plenty of cushioning there pneumatically if you want it, but even as it is, just slow down for the sheep here. Don't want to wear out the lambs. Oh, come on, lass, get up the hill. And the other big difference now is that the back end is now single chainring specific, which means much bigger chainstay yoke, much stiffer across the connection between mainframe and swing arm, and that's really obvious. I mean, not so obvious with these tyres. Light carcass WTBs on narrow rims, bit of a balloon and bounce going on, bit of a sway, but what WTB have got some brand new proper wide carcass tyres coming. Sit them on a wider rim and you are laughing. All right, you know, it's not going to win any cross-country races, but just flick the climb lever on, that Cane Creek inline shock there, and that stabilises both the rebound and the compression, so you still got plenty of traction over uneven surfaces like this, but without that real speed sapping, demoralising mid-stroke bob. So up she comes. Technical climb's not a problem. Of course, that long reach translates to plenty of breathing space. And like I say, 15 kilogram bike, it's an exercise in patience, but it gets up it no problem, as long as you're not racing. And the nice thing about this is that even though Si's gone very progressive with the length of it, he's kept the bottom bracket relatively high because he rides places like this, right close in the Peak District. So he's a tall lad, so he likes the ability to run a proper 175mm crank without worrying about tapping out the pedals all the time. Like I say, you can make the weight work winding up. The traction's good. And the steering takes a while to get used to, but up we go. And as well as having a stiffer back end, this third generation rocket also gets 7mm more travel, so it's up to 157mm now. But not just that, it's so much smoother. The shock and the back end just carry speed so much better than they used to. Used to get to a point, afternoon, used to get to a point in the old rocket where everything just went a bit, well, out of control really. It felt like it was all a bit much. Which is why on the previous generation bikes, I always preferred the Flare Max, because there's a bit less travel and it's just a bit more consistently controllable. I mean, you've got to set it up right, like any highly adjustable shock. The more adjustment you have, the more chance of getting it wrong. You know, you can make it too clunky with too much low speed, or make it a bit too linear. You haven't got enough high speed in there, but apart from that, this bike just carries speed so well now. So smooth through really big stuff now. Just keeps on going and going and going. So you've got this more stable front end, way more controlled in terms of the length of it, optimised for a 35mm stem or 50mm stem. You've got a tighter tracking, longer travel, smoother back end, and that obviously needs a stiffer centre section to tie it all together, or it's just going to be a needly nightmare. So what size also added is this new DZB top tube, 45mm wide, 32mm deep, as opposed to the round down tube which is 37mm diameter. Just gives it far more stiffness and accuracy, thanks very much, which it really needs to tie all this extra speed together, keep it under control. And it's actually a custom drawn Reynolds 853 tube just for Si, is this top tube, and it's made such a difference to all these long shot bikes. But Si's been working with steel so long, you know, both on bikes and his previous engineering career, he's got the balance just right. So you've just got a package that just all the way through, just smoother, faster, more fun basically. And like I say, this is the smaller wheeled one, the more agile, less naturally rapid machine. But even so, this is so easy to go quick on. When Si sent me it, he said, "I think you'll like this, it's quite quick." What an understatement that was. This is definitely a rocket, not just in name, but in the way it behaves as well. PMBA champions twice in 2 years, the rocket team, and it's definitely partially the bike. I mean, obviously there are elements of it, that same ductility that gives it that grip and that forgiveness, lets it flow through sections. You can feel it squirming and snaking around, especially high loading it through berms or off cambers where you can feel it squirm around. But then there are situations where that exact same squirm actually saves you. And this is exactly the sort of trail where this Generation 3 really proves what a significant step up it is from the Generation 2 and 1 bikes, which were lovely, soulful, you know, charismatic steel mainframe full suspension bikes. But this is something really special, really different. That long shot geometry, with that control through turns like that, and that smoothness through the back end, the amount of control coming out of that stiffer alloy rear end, and that inline shock, and getting this Cane Creek helm fork is just such a bonus now. Literally one of my favourite forks. Let's go the rocky way just because it's fun, just to prove a point. But that is so consistent, so well damped, and fully adjustable like the rear shock. High low speed compression and positive and negative spring adjustment. It's just such a superb package now. Carries speed so nicely, but with real finesse. That steel front end are really helping keep the bike so quiet. And it feels quiet through your arms as well. Arm pump is minimal on this. It really is. Shrugs off a lot of fatigue if you're on a numb carbon or alloy bike with that steel DZB top tube, that big ovalized top tube, still keeping that super slack front end, even though it's so far away, that 480mm reach, still keeping it really obedient. I mean, there's a bit of float around, unsurprisingly, that you'd maybe not get with the stiffest alloy bikes, stiffest carbon bikes, but that forgiveness on long days out and long descents like this is a real bonus. And also it's the whole charisma. It's the whole reason you buy a Cotic. It's the reason you go for a steel mainframe bike that's got some proper heart and soul to it. And the thing about the long shot geometry isn't just having the front wheel way out there with all that stability and time to react to stuff. I mean, it feels wonky as hell at first. It feels just far too ridiculous. Once you've synced into it, I mean, there are times if you lose concentration, you might lose the front end off something just because you forget how wide it's running. I've done that a couple of times when I've been tired, but it just centers you so well on the bike. Even if you're a relative newcomer to mountain biking, it just puts you further back in the bike, so your heels are naturally dropped, elbows dropped. It's just such a great stance for attacking any trail on. I mean, with so many bikes to choose from in this 150, 160mm enduro category, it's just great that there are some really characterful ones that, you know, don't have to cost the earth, just have real character and a real joy to the way you can ride them. I like this Cotic rocket. I don't want to say third time lucky on the new rocket, because it ain't luck. It's design skill, evolution and development. That's what's created this rocket, that's what's made it as good as it is. But so great that a bike that's this charismatic with such a great story to it and such an individuality is not only keep up with the best bikes around in terms of speed and control and the way it can handle the sickest terrain, but also be way ahead of most of them in terms of geometry and in terms of that ride feel. Truly outstanding bike, truly outstanding. Top job, Si, top job Cotic team. Third generation rocket. We have liftoff. Thanks for watching. Please like, please share, please subscribe. Makes a massive difference in me being able to do more of these videos, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for coming along for the ride.